On a quiet morning subway, off-duty Marine Liam Carter was heading to base after bereavement leave. In that nearly empty train car, he noticed a strange interaction between what appeared to be a father and daughter. But something about the man's grip on the girl and the fear in her eyes seemed deeply wrong. The truth he would uncover on that fateful morning would be far more sinister than he could have ever imagined, showing that a Marine's duty to protect the innocent beats in his heart, whether on base or on a routine commute. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching or listening from, and if you enjoy these stories, don't forget to subscribe. The morning chill clung to the empty subway station as Lance Corporal Liam Carter descended the stairs. His crisp Marine uniform stood out starkly against the drab surroundings, a beacon of order in the early morning chaos. Liam's footsteps echoed through the quiet station, each step a reminder of the weight he carried. Not just his physical gear, but the emotional burden of recent loss. It was 6:15 a.m., and Liam was acutely aware of the ticking clock. He had precisely 45 minutes to make his 7 a.m. report time. This would be his first day back on duty after a 2-day bereavement leave, a brief respite granted to attend the funeral of a fellow Marine. The memory of his friend's face, forever young in his dress blues, flashed through Liam's mind. An overdose during training. It seemed so senseless, so preventable. The loss hung heavy on his heart, a constant reminder of the fragility of life, even among the strongest of them. As Liam approached his platform, his trained eye automatically began to catalogue details. The station held only 3 other people, a stark contrast to the usual morning rush he was accustomed to. A man with distinctly immigrant features wearing a denim jacket stood near the edge of the platform, his hand resting firmly on the shoulder of a young blonde girl. The girl, no more than 6 or 7 years old, wore a bright and colourful school uniform, her backpack seeming almost too large for her small frame. Despite the cheerful appearance of her outfit, Liam noticed a tension in her body language that seemed out of place. The third commuter, absorbed in their phone, barely registered in Liam's assessment. His focus remained on the man and the girl, an odd pairing that tugged at his instincts. Pushing aside any judgmental thoughts about their apparent interracial relationship, Liam offered a polite smile and a nod. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying the crisp politeness instilled by years of military training. The man looked up, meeting Liam's gaze. "Good morning," he replied, his tone friendly enough. "Just another day, huh?" Liam nodded, feeling the weight of his recent loss press against his chest. "Indeed it is. Walking your kid to school?" "Yeah," the man confirmed, his hand tightening almost imperceptibly on the girl's shoulder. "School's starting earlier for young children these days." Not being particularly familiar with the schedules of young children, Liam simply nodded in agreement. The brief exchange felt oddly rehearsed, as if the man had practiced this conversation many times before. Something about it niggled at the back of Liam's mind, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what was bothering him. Glancing at his watch, Liam realized he still had a few minutes before his train was due. He made his way to the nearby vending machine, fishing in his pocket for some change. As the can of coffee clunked into the retrieval slot, Liam heard a sudden commotion behind him. Turning, Liam noticed the young girl had slipped away from the man and was now clutching his arm. Her wide eyes, brimming with desperation, sent a shiver through him. Before he could respond, the man hurried over, gently pulling the girl back with an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry," the man said, his voice tight. "She's just a little anxious about her first day at the new school." "Would she like a drink?" Liam offered. "I've got some spare change." "Oh, no, that's not necessary. We wouldn't want to bother you, right, Karina?" the man replied, gently tugging the girl's arm. She reluctantly nodded and followed him back to the platform, stepping behind the yellow line as they waited for the train. Liam watched as tears welled up in the girl's eyes, her small frame trembling slightly as the man guided her away. The unease stirring within him grew stronger, but he forced it aside, convincing himself he was reading too much into the situation. After all, nerves on the first day of school were normal for kids, weren't they? Liam popped open the can of drink and took a few gulps, the cool liquid doing little to soothe the unease that lingered in his chest. The man, as though eager to shift the focus, turned back to Liam with a practiced smile. "So, you're in the service. How long have you been serving?" he asked, his tone casual but probing. Liam straightened, his posture automatically shifting to attention. 3 years, sir. Joined right out of high school. What made you decide to enlist? The man pressed, his eyes darting between Liam and the girl. Liam glanced down briefly, memories of his father flooding his mind. Family tradition, I guess. My dad was in the Corps, always felt like the right path for me. As if on cue, the rumble of an approaching train filled the station. The man nodded, guiding the girl towards one of the doors. Well, thank you for your service. Have a good day. Liam watched as they boarded, choosing to enter through a different door himself. As he settled into his seat, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. But with his duty calling and the weight of recent events pressing on his mind, he pushed the thought aside and focused on the day ahead. The subway car hummed with the quiet energy of early morning commuters as it sped through the underground tunnels. Liam had settled into a seat near the back of the car, his phone out as he scrolled through the morning news. The familiar routine helped to ground him, pushing away the lingering unease from his encounter on the platform. Suddenly, a faint sound pierced the steady hum of the train. "Stop! Stop!" a small voice pleaded, barely audible over the rhythmic clatter of wheels on the tracks. Liam's head shot up, his combat-trained instincts kicking in as a surge of alertness coursed through him. Sliding his phone into his pocket, he scanned the car, searching for the source of the distress. Convinced the voice hadn't come from nearby, Liam stood and began moving. The train's open gangway design allowed him to pass between cars without obstruction. As he moved through the sparsely occupied sections, his senses sharpened, each step carrying him closer to the sound. "Stop, please," came the whisper again, trembling and desperate. This time, Liam was certain it came from the car ahead, where only 2 people were seated alone, the man and the young girl. As he entered the next car, Liam's gaze fell upon a familiar sight: the man and girl from the platform. They were the only occupants of this section, seated a few rows ahead. Under the pretense of seeking a quieter spot, Liam positioned himself a few rows before them, where he could observe without drawing attention. From this new vantage point, the dynamic between the man and the girl took on a different character. The man's grip on the girl's leg appeared unnecessarily tight, his demeanor shifting between performative affection and controlled aggression when he thought no one was watching. The girl kept trying to edge away, only to be roughly pulled back each time. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the subway car, the contrast between the two became even more stark. The man looked less like a caring father and more like a stranger, his actions raising red flags in Liam's mind. He found himself reassessing his earlier assumptions, the nagging feeling of wrongness growing stronger with each passing moment. Deciding to test the waters, Liam deliberately cleared his throat, making his presence known. The man's reaction was telling, a flash of anger quickly masked by an apologetic smile. "Oh, there you are again, Lance Corporal. I'm sorry," the man said, his voice tight with discomfort. "My daughter's a bit restless this morning. We didn't realize anyone else was in the car." Liam nodded, keeping his expression neutral. "No problem at all. Is everything okay? Can I help with anything?" The man's grip on the girl tightened almost imperceptibly. No, we're fine. Thank you for asking." Sensing the growing tension, Liam decided to change tactics. He pretended to spot a discarded newspaper a few seats away, using the movement to get a closer look at the girl's face without alerting the man. What he saw confirmed his growing suspicions, fear and discomfort etched clearly in her young features. Heart racing, Liam grabbed the newspaper and forced a smile at the man, waving it as if to signal that he'd find somewhere quiet to read. He turned and made his way back through the gangway, heading toward the further end of the train. His mind spun, trying to piece together what he had just witnessed: the girl's terrified expression, the man's overbearing demeanor, and the unsettling tension between them. It all pointed to something that didn't sit right, a situation that was far from normal. As he settled back into his original seat, Liam found himself at a crossroads. His military training urged him to act, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. But doubt nagged at him. What if he was misreading the situation? What if his recent trauma was causing him to see threats where none existed? With trembling hands, Liam pulled out his phone. He had a decision to make, and the weight of it pressed heavily on his shoulders. As the train hurtled through the darkness, Lance Corporal Liam Carter found himself facing a test of judgment that no amount of military training could have prepared him for. With his heart pounding in his chest, Liam unfolded the newspaper he had retrieved, using it as a cover while he dialed 911. His fingers trembled slightly as he pressed the phone to his ear, his voice low and controlled when the dispatcher answered. "This is Lance Corporal Liam Carter," he began, his voice steady and precise, honed by years of military training. "I'm calling to report a potential child abduction in progress." Liam detailed his suspicions, describing the man's height, build, and clothing with the sharpness of a trained observer. He relayed their current location on the train and the upcoming stops, his words calm despite the growing unease in his chest. "The suspect is a man of immigrant appearance, approximately 5'10", medium build, wearing a denim jacket," Liam reported. "He's with a young blonde girl about 6 or 7 years old, in a colorful school uniform. Their behavior is highly suspicious, and the child appears to be in distress. I believe we need an undercover unit." As Liam continued, the dispatcher's voice sliced through his concentration. "Are you sure this is a case of kidnapping, sir?" The question lingered in the air, heavy with implication. Liam's eyes darted up from his newspaper, scanning the distant figures of the man and girl. To his surprise, he saw the girl suddenly embrace the man, a smile on her face as she accepted what appeared to be a dollar bill from him. The scene made Liam's certainty waver. Had he misread the entire situation? "Actually," Liam hesitated, doubt creeping into his voice. "No, I'm not sure. It seems everything is all right now. Just a misunderstanding." He could hear the irritation in the dispatcher's tone as she responded. "Lance Corporal Liam Carter, I must remind you that making a false report is a serious offense. If this turns out to be a false alarm, you will be held accountable for the consequences." Liam's stomach churned at the reprimand, but he offered a brief apology before ending the call. He slumped back in his seat, a wave of conflicting emotions washing over him. Doubt gnawed at him, but the image of the girl's frightened face remained, fueling the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. As the train continued its journey, Liam found himself unable to look away from the pair. The girl was now smiling and nodding her head, clutching the dollar bill as she retook her seat next to the man. Liam rubbed his eyes, suddenly feeling exhausted. Had his years in the military service made him paranoid? Was he seeing threats where none existed? His thoughts drifted to his lost comrade's funeral, the weight of recent events pressing down on him. They had done everything together, shared so much, and yet he hadn't noticed his friend's struggle with depression, hadn't seen the signs that led to the fatal overdose. The realization that he had missed something so crucial in someone so close to him shook Liam to his core. Unconsciously, Liam's hand moved to his watch, a gift from his late father, another Marine. The cool metal against his skin grounded him, a tangible link to his family's legacy of service. But it also served as a reminder of the responsibility that came with wearing the uniform, the duty to protect and serve that extended beyond the battlefield. The internal struggle raged within him. On one side, his training and instincts screamed that something was wrong, that the child was in danger. On the other, his recent experiences had shaken his confidence in his ability to read people and situations accurately. The fear of overreacting, of seeing threats where none existed, warred with his deep-seated need to protect the innocent. As the train slowed, approaching the next station, the speaker crackled to life, announcing the stop. The sound jolted Liam back to reality, his eyes refocusing on the scene before him. He watched as the man and girl rose from their seats, preparing to exit the train. Liam's gaze followed them, his mind racing. If he was wrong, if he followed them and caused a scene, he would certainly be late for his report time. After his recent bereavement leave, such a transgression could have serious consequences for his career. But if he was right, if the child was truly in danger. Just as the doors began to close, Liam caught sight of the girl through the window. In that brief moment their eyes met, and he saw something that made his blood run cold. The girl deliberately raised her hand, forming a signal, 4 fingers up, thumb trapped. It was a universal distress signal, one that Liam instantly recognized from his training. In that split second, all of Liam's doubts evaporated. His military instincts snapped back into focus with crystal clarity. As the doors began to slide shut, Lance Corporal Liam Carter found himself faced with a decision that would change the course of his day and potentially save a young girl's life. The subway doors were mere inches from closing when Liam made his decision. With the agility born of years of military training, he squeezed through the narrowing gap, his heart pounding as he stepped onto the platform. The cool air of the station hit his face, a stark contrast to the stuffy interior of the train car he'd just left. Liam's eyes immediately sought out the man and the girl, spotting them making their way through the crowded station corridors. A quick glance at his watch showed 6:45 a.m. Following them meant certain tardiness for his 7 a.m. report time. The potential consequences of being AWOL, especially given his recent bereavement leave, weighed heavily on his mind. But the memory of the girl's distress signal overrode all other concerns. Drawing on his tactical training, Liam maintained a careful distance as he trailed the pair. He kept his headphones in and his phone out, mimicking the distracted demeanor of a typical commuter while never losing sight of his targets. The man's path led them out of the station and onto the bustling city streets, the early morning crowd providing both cover and obstacles for Liam's pursuit. As they walked, Liam's mind raced, analyzing every detail of the situation. The man's confident stride, the girl's hesitant steps, the way he kept a firm grip on her hand. Everything pointed to a scenario far more sinister than a simple father-daughter outing. After several blocks, they approached a school building. Liam hung back, watching from behind a parked car as the man and girl entered the grounds. Something about the timing felt off. The school grounds were nearly empty, too early for the normal arrival time of students and staff. Liam waited, his military training kicking in as he observed the scene. After what felt like an eternity but was likely only a few minutes, he saw the man exit alone, walking briskly away from the school, heading toward the train station. Just as he was about to approach the building, Liam caught sight of the girl through a school window. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and she quickly disappeared from view, as though startled by his presence. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Liam approached the school building, every instinct telling him to proceed with caution. At the entrance, he was met by a receptionist, her friendly smile faltering slightly at the sight of his uniform. Liam put on his most disarming expression, crafting a story on the spot. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, his voice calm and authoritative. "I'm here to check on my sister. Family emergency, I'm afraid." The receptionist's expression softened with sympathy. "Of course, sir. What's your sister's name?" Liam hesitated for a split second, the image of the girl's blonde hair and her age flashing in his mind. "Karina," he muttered to himself, remembering the name from the train station. "She's in first grade, I believe." The receptionist nodded, seemingly accepting his story. "The first-grade classrooms are down that hallway, past the playground," she said, pointing. She had just come here with her father. Before Liam could respond, the receptionist glanced at him curiously. "And who might you be?" Liam hesitated for a moment, then offered a calm smile. "I'm her stepbrother," he explained. "I used to be in the army, just here to check on her today. Is she always here this early?" The receptionist nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, she's always come early since last year," she said. "Her mother made a special request for us to watch over her, since she has an early job and can't always drop her off on time." Liam nodded, forcing a smile. "You're right, our mum has an early work, but I never thought my sister would. Anyway, thank you for your help." As he walked down the quiet corridors, Liam's unease grew. The minimal staff presence and empty halls confirmed his suspicion about the early hour. He passed by closed classroom doors, the silence broken only by the sound of his own footsteps. Reaching the playground, Liam's eyes scanned the area, finally spotting a small figure huddled in the dome of the monkey bars. His heart raced as he approached, careful to move slowly and deliberately to avoid frightening her further. As he drew closer, the girl looked up, her eyes wide with fear. Liam stopped a few feet away, then slowly raised his hand, demonstrating the distress signal she had used on the train. The girl's expression changed from fear to cautious hope. "Hi there," Liam said softly, kneeling down to be at her eye level. "My name is Liam Carter. I'm a soldier, and I saw your signal on the train. Can you tell me your name?" The girl hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper when she finally spoke. "Karina Peterson." Liam nodded encouragingly, his voice gentle but firm. "Karina, I'm here to help you. Can you tell me about the man who brought you here? I saw that you were doing the hand gesture." Before Karina could respond, a voice called out from behind them. "Excuse me, who are you?" Liam turned to see a woman approaching, her professional attire and concerned expression marking her as a teacher. He stood slowly, his mind racing to adapt his story. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, his military bearing evident in his posture as he stood up to greet the teacher. "I'm Liam Carter, Karina's brother. There's been a family situation, and I'm here to check on her." The teacher's brow furrowed in confusion. "I'm Ms. Casey, Karina's classroom teacher," she said. "I wasn't aware Karina had a brother in the military, but yes, Karina's mom mentioned someone in the family was in the army, her father." Liam nodded, thinking quickly. "Yes, that's right, and I'm also in the military," he added smoothly, hoping his quick thinking would clear up any confusion. Ms. Casey's expression cleared slightly. "Yes, I see. Actually, speaking of Karina's mother, your mother, I'm a bit confused. Why didn't your mother come to the parent-teacher meeting last week to collect Karina's report card?" The question caught Liam off guard. He glanced at Karina, noting the fear that flashed across her face at the mention of the meeting. "I'm afraid I don't know about that," he said carefully. "As I mentioned, I've been away. I just thought to visit my sister this morning." Ms. Casey's eyes narrowed slightly, but she nodded. "I see. Well, since you're here, perhaps you'd like to see some of Karina's recent work. I have some concerns I'd like to discuss, and since the school couldn't reach out to her mother, perhaps I can show them to you instead." Liam hesitated for a moment, then replied, "I would like that." As Ms. Casey led them back toward the classroom, Liam's mind raced. He had gained entry to the school and made contact with Karina. But now he faced a new challenge. How could he uncover the truth and protect the child while maintaining his cover story? If his real identity were discovered, and it turned out he had no familial relation to Karina, his position in the army could be at risk. Ms. Casey led Liam and Karina into the empty classroom, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows and casting long shadows across the desks. The teacher moved to her desk, rifling through a stack of papers, before pulling out a folder labeled with Karina's name. "I'm glad you're here, Mr. Carter," Ms. Casey began, her tone professional but tinged with concern. "We've been trying to reach your mother about some changes we've noticed in Karina's behavior and schoolwork over the past 2 weeks." Liam nodded, trying to maintain his composure while his mind raced. 2 weeks. That aligned with the time frame of the suspicious behavior he'd witnessed on the subway. "What kind of changes?" he asked, careful to keep his voice neutral. Ms. Casey opened the folder, spreading out a collection of drawings and a report card across her desk. "Karina has always been a bright, creative student," she explained. "As you can see in her report card, she's made solid academic progress last term. But lately, her artwork has taken a troubling shift." Liam leaned in to examine the drawings, feeling a chill run down his spine as he took in the progression. The earlier pieces were filled with bright colors and cheerful scenes, a house, a smiling family, flowers, and sunshine. But as he moved through the stack, the images grew darker, more unsettling. Shadowy figures loomed in the backgrounds of later drawings. The once smiling faces were replaced with frowns and tears. One recurring element caught Liam's attention, a menacing male figure that appeared in multiple images, always hovering near a small blonde girl. "This change in her artwork is often an indicator that a child is feeling insecure or frightened," Ms. Casey explained, her voice low. "We've also noticed Karina becoming more withdrawn in class, less willing to participate." Liam glanced at Karina, who was standing slightly behind him, her small hands clutching the straps of her backpack. The fear in her eyes was palpable, and he felt a surge of protective instinct. Karina's lower lip trembled, and for a moment, Liam thought she might speak. but instead she shook her head slightly, her eyes darting nervously between Liam and Ms. Casey. Ms. Casey sighed, her brow furrowing with concern. "This is why we've been trying to reach your mother. We're worried that something might be happening at home or that Karina might have experienced something traumatic." Liam nodded, his mind racing. He knew the truth was far more sinister than Ms. Casey could imagine, but he couldn't reveal what he knew without potentially frightening Karina further or compromising the investigation. "I appreciate you bringing this to our attention," Liam said, sticking to his cover as Karina's brother. "I'll make sure to discuss it with our mother. For now, though, I'd like to speak with Karina alone. I think she might feel more at ease opening up without anyone else around." Liam stood up, his eyes following Karina as she darted outside, quickly retreating to the inside of her dome monkey bar. "Thank you," Liam replied, his voice steady as he followed Karina through the doorway back to the playground. Liam took a seat on the playground floor, his eyes following her movements before speaking softly. "Karina," he said once they were alone, "I know you're scared, but I promise I'm here to help you. Can you tell me about the man who brought you to school today? Is he the same man in your drawings?" For a long moment, Karina remained silent, her eyes fixed on the colorful rug beneath them. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she nodded and began to speak. "He's scary. He's not my dad," she said, her words coming out in a rush. "He says he is, but he's lying. My real dad, he died. The man, he's been waiting at the subway station for weeks. He talks to me, tries to get close. He hurts me if I don't say he's my dad." Liam felt a surge of anger at her words, but he kept his expression calm and encouraging. "You're very brave for telling me this, Karina. Can you tell me more about what happens with this man?" Karina nodded, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. He said yesterday that he wanted me to go home with him. I made an excuse, said I would go today. I was so scared." The realization hit Liam like a physical blow. He had intervened just in time, potentially saving Karina from an unthinkable fate. He took a deep breath, steadying himself before speaking again. "Karina, you've done nothing wrong," Liam said gently, trying to reassure her. "This man is what we call a tricky person, and he can be very dangerous because he has a hidden motive. I'm going to make sure he never hurts you again." He paused for a moment, his tone softening. "Can you tell me about your mum? Where is she, and why are you going to school alone so early?" Karina wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, her voice small but steady. "Mum works almost all the time. She drops me at the subway every morning, and I take the early train. I wait at school until it starts." Liam's heart ached at the vulnerability in her voice. "Does your mum know about this man?" Karina shook her head vigorously. "No, he said I couldn't tell her. He said it would make her angry at me because I discovered my second dad. But I know he's lying. I didn't know what to do. If I tell Mom, she might be angry because I keep seeing the man." Liam reached out, gently taking Karina's small hand in his. "You did the right thing by telling me, Karina. I promise you we're going to keep you safe. That man will never hurt you again." As Karina looked up at him, her blue eyes wide and brimming with a mix of fear and hope, Liam felt a renewed sense of purpose. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, revealing a sinister plot that had nearly succeeded. But now, armed with the truth and backed by his military training, Lance Corporal Liam Carter was prepared to see this through to the end, no matter the cost. With the truth now revealed, Liam knew he had to act quickly. The weight of Karina's confession hung heavy in the air, and he could see the fear and relief warring in her eyes. He squeezed her hand gently, offering what comfort he could. "Karina," Liam said softly, his voice steady and reassuring, "you've been so brave. What you've told me is very important, and it's going to help us keep you safe. But now, we need to tell some other people who can help us make sure that bad man never comes near you again. Is that okay?" Karina's lower lip trembled, and for a moment Liam thought she might refuse, but then she nodded, her small voice barely above a whisper. "Okay, but you won't leave me, will you?" Liam felt his heart clench at her words. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I promise I'll stay with you as long as you need me to," he said, his voice filled with conviction. Karina looked up at him, her eyes wide with worry. "Is Mom going to get angry at me?" Liam paused, taking a deep breath as he considered his answer carefully. He could see the fear in her eyes, and he knew he needed to say something that would comfort her. "No, sweetie, your mom won't be angry at you," he said gently, giving her a soft smile. "I'll help talk to her so she can understand. She just needs to know what's been going on, and we'll make sure everything is okay. You're not in trouble, Karina. You're doing the right thing by telling me." He gave her a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. "We'll work through this together, okay?" With Karina's agreement, Liam knew his next steps were crucial. He needed to involve the authorities immediately, but he also had to be careful not to frighten Karina any further or alert the suspect if he was still in the area. Taking a deep breath, Liam pulled out his phone and dialed 911 for the second time that morning. This time there was no hesitation in his voice as he reported the situation. "This is Lance Corporal Liam Carter," he began, his tone crisp and professional. "I'm at Westfield Elementary School, reporting an attempted kidnapping and ongoing child endangerment situation." As he spoke, Liam provided a detailed account of the morning's events, the suspicious behavior on the subway, the distress signal from Karina, and the revelations that had unfolded at the school. He described the suspect in detail, emphasizing the pattern of predatory behavior and the urgency of the situation. "The suspect has been targeting this child for weeks," Liam explained. "He's been using the early morning hours when she travels alone to school. We have reason to believe he may attempt to abduct her today." The dispatcher assured Liam that units were already en route, their response time expedited by the severity of the situation. As he ended the call, Liam turned to Karina, who had been listening with wide, fearful eyes. "Help is on the way, Karina," he said gently. "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." With the police notified, Liam knew he needed to brief Ms. Casey on the full situation. He led Karina back to the main part of the classroom, where the teacher was preparing for the upcoming morning class. "Ms. Casey," Liam began, his voice low and serious, "I need to speak with you privately for a moment. It's urgent." Recognizing the gravity in his tone, Ms. Casey nodded and stepped closer. Liam quickly explained the situation, watching as the teacher's expression shifted from confusion to annoyance when Liam admitted that he had been lying about his familiar relationship to Karina, then to horror when he explained about the imposter and child predator. Ms. Casey crossed her arms, her expression hardening as she studied Liam. "How can I trust you now?" she asked, her voice edged with doubt. "You lied about being Karina's brother. What makes you think I should believe anything you say after that?" Liam met her gaze, his face serious as he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I understand why you're upset. I never wanted to deceive anyone, but I had to protect Karina. The man she's with isn't her father. He's an imposter. I lied about being her brother to gain your trust and get access to her, so I could help her. I'm not here to cause trouble or make things worse. I'm just trying to make sure she's safe." He paused, trying to let his sincerity come through. "I'm asking for your trust now, because we don't have much time before that man comes back. Will you help me protect her? The police is on their way here now as we speak." Ms. Casey took a long breath, her arms still crossed as she considered Liam's words. Her expression softened slightly, the hard edge of suspicion beginning to fade. "I still don't like that you lied to me," she said, her tone measured but less accusatory. "But if what you're saying is true, then I can see why you did it." She glanced around, then nodded. "We need to keep Karina safe. I'll help you. Let's make sure she's not in any more danger." Her voice was steady now, filled with a sense of purpose. "But we need to do this carefully. You're right. Time is not on our side." "We need to implement immediate security measures," Liam said, his military training evident in his authoritative tone. "No one except Karina's mother should be allowed to collect her. Can you help coordinate with the school administration?" Ms. Casey nodded, her initial shock giving way to determined professionalism. "Of course. I'll speak with the principal right away and make sure all staff are alerted." As Ms. Casey moved to make the necessary calls, the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Liam knelt beside Karina once more, offering a reassuring smile. "You hear those sirens, Karina? That's help coming. We're going to keep you safe, I promise." Within minutes, the school was a flurry of activity. Police officers arrived, quickly splitting into tactical teams. One unit remained with Karina and Ms. Casey at the school, working to contact Karina's mother and gather more information. Another team prepared to search for the suspect, using Liam's detailed description and knowledge of the subway route as their starting point. As the situation unfolded, Liam found himself becoming the natural nexus of communication between the school staff, police, and Karina. His military training allowed him to provide organized, actionable intelligence while maintaining a calm presence that helped keep Karina feeling secure. The school implemented a subtle lockdown, with staff quietly securing entrances while maintaining normal routines to avoid frightening other arriving students. Liam watched as the police officers moved with practiced efficiency, securing the perimeter and establishing a command post in the school office. A police sergeant approached Liam, her expression serious. "Corporal Carter, you mentioned that you saw the man walking back to the subway station. We'd like you to join the team heading back to the station. Your familiarity with the suspect's behavior could be invaluable." Liam nodded, feeling a mix of determination and apprehension. He turned to Karina, who was watching the activity around her with wide eyes. "Karina, I need to go help the police find the bad man," he explained gently. "But I promise these officers will keep you safe. I'll be back as soon as I can, okay?" Karina's lower lip trembled, but she nodded bravely. "Okay, be careful, Liam." With a final reassuring smile, Liam joined the police team. As they headed towards the subway station, he steeled himself for what lay ahead. The hunt was on, and Lance Corporal Liam Carter was determined to see justice served. As Liam and the police team arrived at the subway station, the atmosphere in the subway station grew increasingly frantic, with the crowd moving in every direction, all oblivious to the urgency of Liam's mission. He stood near the platform, his military training kicking in as he surveyed the people rushing by. The noise and chaos of the morning rush hour seemed to fade into the background, his focus entirely on finding the man. He couldn't afford to lose him. His eyes locked onto a tall figure in a denim jacket, but it wasn't the one he was looking for. He quickly moved on, heart still racing. The police team worked in tandem, moving with purpose and positioning themselves strategically, but the station was so congested that finding the right person felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. Liam's mind raced through every detail he'd gathered: the man's height, build, the jacket, the demeanor. Any one of these faces could be him. Time was slipping away, and Liam couldn't help but feel the weight of the mission bear down even harder with every second that passed. "Remember," the lead detective briefed the team, "we're looking for a man of immigrant appearance, approximately 5'10", medium build, wearing a denim jacket. He's likely to be targeting children traveling alone. Stay alert and communicate any sightings immediately." Liam nodded, his military training kicking in as he moved through the crowd with purpose. He led the team to the platform where he had first encountered the suspect, his eyes constantly scanning for any sign of the man or potential victims. As they moved along the platform, Liam's attention was drawn to a familiar scene. A man matching the suspect's description, but now dressed in different color jacket, was attempting to engage a young girl in conversation. The girl, wearing a school uniform different from Karina's, looked uncomfortable and kept trying to edge away. Liam's blood ran cold as he recognized the same manipulation tactics being deployed. Without hesitation, he signaled to the police team and began moving towards the pair, his heart pounding in his chest. The suspect, focused on his potential victim, didn't notice their approach until it was too late. As the train doors began to close, Liam lunged forward, forcing them open and pressing the emergency button. In one fluid motion, he positioned himself between the suspect and the child, his Marine training taking over. "Step away from the girl," Liam ordered, his voice steady and commanding. "What? I'm her father." The suspect's eyes widened with a mix of recognition and fear as he saw Liam's uniform. Before he could make a move, the police team stormed into the train car, swiftly taking control of the situation. "Sure, and I'm sure you're the father of a lot of kids," Liam shot back. He stepped forward, his gaze hard and unwavering. "You're not fooling anyone, not me," he said, his tone sharp. "We know who you really are." As the officers handcuffed the suspect, Liam turned his attention to the young girl, who was trembling with fear and confusion. "It's okay," he said gently, kneeling down to her level. "You're safe now. These police officers are here to help you. Can you tell me your name?" The girl, still shaken, managed to whisper her name. "Emily." She confessed that the man had been seeing her for a few days and he's not her father. Liam stayed with her, offering comforting words as the police contacted her parents and secured her safety. Meanwhile, the suspect was being thoroughly searched. The lead detective approached Liam, her expression grim. "We found multiple IDs on him," she reported. "Mateo Alvarez, Carlos Moreno, Victor Salgado. This guy's been operating under several aliases. It looks like we've stumbled onto something much bigger than we initially thought." Liam nodded, a mix of relief and anger coursing through him. As the police led the suspect off the train, the man's composure finally broke. He turned to Liam, his face contorted with rage, and spat directly at his uniform. "You ruined everything," the man snarled as the officers tightened their grip on him. Liam remained stoic, brushing off the spittle from his uniform. The lead detective shook her head in disgust. "Add assault on a service member to his charges," she instructed her team. Then, turning to Liam, she said, "We'll need you to come down to the station to give a full statement. Your intervention today may have just helped us begin an important investigation, and we need as many witness and evidence as possible." Liam nodded, his resolve steady. "I'll come down to the station, but I promised Karina I'd stay with her and speak to her mother first. I need to make sure she's okay." "No problem, Lance Corporal. We'll be waiting for you at the station." As they led the suspect away, Liam felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. The adrenaline that had been fueling him began to ebb, replaced by a profound sense of relief. He had acted on his instincts, trusted his training, and potentially saved multiple children from a terrible fate. Liam turned and made his way toward the school, his mind focused on the next step. He knew the situation wasn't over yet, but for now his priority was to ensure Karina felt safe and that her mother understood what had happened. But even as he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, Liam knew that his job wasn't finished. There was still Karina to think about, and her mother to contact. With a deep breath, Liam straightened his uniform and prepared to head back to the school. The day had already been long and intense, but he was determined to see it through to the end. The school hallways were eerily quiet as Liam made his way back to the office where he had left Karina with Ms. Casey. The usual bustle of students and teachers was absent, replaced by the somber presence of police officers and school administrators. As he approached, he could hear muffled voices coming from inside the room. Pushing the door open gently, Liam was met with a scene that made his heart clench. Karina was huddled in a chair, her small frame shaking with sobs, as a woman, presumably her mother, knelt before her, tears streaming down her own face. Ms. Casey stood nearby, her expression a mix of concern and relief. As Liam entered, all eyes turned to him. The woman who must be Karina's mother stood, her eyes red-rimmed but filled with gratitude. "Are you Liam?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "The Marine who saved my daughter?" Liam nodded, feeling a sudden wave of self-consciousness. "Yes, ma'am, Lance Corporal Liam Carter." The woman rushed forward, enveloping Liam in a tight embrace that caught him off guard. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "Thank you for protecting my baby." As she pulled away, Liam got a better look at her. She was a petite woman with the same blonde hair as Karina, though hers was pulled back in a messy bun. Her clothes were wrinkled, and dark circles under her eyes spoke of long hours and little sleep. "I'm Jocelyn Peterson," she said, wiping her eyes. "I can't believe this happened. I never meant to. I didn't know." Liam placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's not your fault, Ms. Peterson. The man who did this was a skilled predator. He knew exactly how to exploit vulnerabilities." Jocelyn nodded, though the guilt in her eyes remained. She turned back to Karina, who was watching the interaction with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Oh, sweetheart," Jocelyn said, kneeling in front of her daughter once more. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to put you in danger. I thought I thought I was doing the right thing, working so hard to keep you in this school, to give you opportunities. But I see now that I've been neglecting what's most important." Karina sniffled, her small hand reaching out to touch her mother's face. "You're not mad at me?" she asked in a tiny voice. "Oh, baby, no," Jocelyn said, pulling Karina into a tight hug. "I could never be mad at you for this. You were so brave. I'm the one who should be asking for your forgiveness." "Mommy, please don't work too much. I miss you. I was so scared." As mother and daughter embraced, Liam felt a lump form in his throat. He glanced at Ms. Casey, who was discreetly wiping away her own tears. After a moment, Jocelyn turned back to Liam, keeping one arm around Karina. "I can't thank you enough for what you've done. The police told me what happened, how you noticed something was wrong and followed your instincts. If you hadn't been there—" She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Liam nodded solemnly, understanding the unspoken horror of what might have been. "I'm just glad I was able to help," he said. "It's what any Marine would have done." "Marine," she repeated softly. Then, to Liam's surprise, she let out a small, sad laugh. "You know, this can't be a coincidence. Karina's father, he was a Marine too, and he used to say that." Liam felt a jolt of surprise at this revelation. "He was?" Jocelyn nodded, her eyes taking on a faraway look. "Yes, he passed away in Afghanistan during his 3rd tour. It's been just Karina and me ever since." The weight of this information settled heavily on Liam's shoulders. He thought of his own father, another Marine who had given his life in service. The connection he felt to this family, to Karina, suddenly deepened. "I'm sorry for your loss," Liam said softly. "Your husband served his country with honor." Jocelyn smiled sadly. "He did. And now it seems another Marine has come to our rescue. Maybe he was watching over us, sending you to protect our little girl." Liam felt a lump form in his throat at her words. He knelt down, bringing himself to Karina's eye level. "Your dad was a hero, Karina," he said gently, "and I bet he'd be so proud of how brave you've been." Karina's eyes welled up with fresh tears, but this time a small smile accompanied them. "Really?" she asked. "Really," Liam confirmed. "You know, we Marines have a saying, semper fidelis. It means always faithful. Your dad lived by those words, and today you showed that same kind of bravery and faithfulness." As Karina beamed at his words, Jocelyn placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "We can never repay you for what you've done," she said, "but please, let us at least thank you properly. Would you join us for dinner tomorrow night?" Liam hesitated for a moment, thinking of his duties and the aftermath of the day's events. But looking at Karina's hopeful face and feeling the weight of the connection he now shared with this family, he found himself nodding. "I'd be honored," he said. As he prepared to leave, needing to give his statement at the police station before reporting to his own base, Liam felt a tugging on his sleeve. He looked down to see Karina, her blue eyes shining with a mix of gratitude and admiration. "Thank you for saving me, Liam," she said softly. "Will you teach me more about being brave like a Marine?" Liam felt his heart swell with emotion. He knelt down once more, meeting Karina's gaze. "Karina, you're already braver than you know, but I'd be happy to share more with you. Remember, though, the most important thing is to always tell the truth and never keep secrets from your mum, okay?" Karina nodded solemnly, then surprised Liam by throwing her arms around his neck in a tight hug. As he returned the embrace, Liam caught Jocelyn's eye over Karina's shoulder. The gratitude and relief in her gaze spoke volumes. As Liam finally left the school, heading towards the police station to give his statement, he felt a mix of exhaustion and purpose. The day had been long and intense, but he knew that his actions had made a real difference. He had not only saved Karina, but potentially many other children from a terrible fate. Walking down the street, Liam's thoughts turned to his own past, his father's sacrifice, his friend's recent death, and the path that had led him to this moment. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of clarity about his role as a Marine and his place in the world. Today, he had lived up to the Corps' values in a way that went beyond any battlefield. As Liam made his way towards the police station, The events of the morning replayed in his mind. The weight of what he had prevented, the lives he had potentially saved, settled heavily on his shoulders. He was so lost in thought that the sudden vibration of his phone in his pocket startled him. Fishing out the device, Liam's heart sank as he saw his corporal's number displayed on the screen. With a deep breath, he answered the call, bracing himself for the repercussions of missing his report time. "Lance Corporal Carter speaking, sir," he said, his voice steady despite his apprehension. To his surprise, the corporal's tone was not angry but concerned. "Carter, where are you? We received a call from the local police about your involvement in preventing a kidnapping. Are you all right?" Liam blinked, momentarily stunned by the unexpected turn of events. "Yes, sir, I'm fine. I'm on my way to the police station now to give my statement." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when the corporal spoke again, there was a note of pride in his voice. "You did good, Carter. Protecting civilians, especially children, embodies the highest values of the Marine Corps. I want a full report when you get back to base, but for now, complete your duties with the police." "Thank you, sir," Liam replied, a wave of relief washing over him. "I'll report in as soon as I'm done at the station." As he ended the call, Liam felt a shift in his perspective. His decision to follow his instincts, to put the safety of a child above his immediate duty, wasn't a dereliction of his responsibilities. It was an extension of his oath to serve and protect. Arriving at the police station, Liam was immediately ushered into an interview room. The detective who had been at the subway station greeted him with a grim smile. "Corporal Carter, thank you for coming in," she said, gesturing for him to take a seat. "We've got some updates on the case that you should be aware of." Liam sat down, his posture straight, ready to provide whatever information was needed. "I'm here to help in any way I can, Detective." The detective nodded, opening a file on the table between them. "The suspect you helped apprehend, the one with multiple aliases. We've linked him to a series of child disappearances across the state. Your intervention today has just cracked open a children abuse operation." Liam felt a chill run down his spine at her words. The scope of what he had stumbled upon was far larger than he had initially realized. As the detective laid out the details of their preliminary findings, Liam provided his own account of the morning's events. He described his initial observations on the subway, the distress signal from Karina, and the subsequent revelations at the school. "Your detailed description of the suspect's behavior and route was crucial," the detective said. "It allowed us to mobilize quickly and potentially prevent another abduction." As the interview wound down, Liam felt a mix of emotions: relief at the outcome, anger at the scope of the criminal operation, and a renewed sense of purpose in his role as a Marine. "Corporal Carter," the detective said as he prepared to leave, "I want you to know that your actions today went above and beyond. You've made a real difference in a lot of lives." Liam nodded, feeling a swell of pride tempered by humility. "I was just doing what I was trained to do, ma'am. Protect and serve." As he left the police station, Liam checked his watch. It was well past noon, and he still needed to report to his base. But despite the long, intense morning, he felt energized by a sense of purpose. And pulling out his phone, he dialed the number for his base. "This is Lance Corporal Carter," he said when the call was answered. "I'm on my way in now to give my full report on today's events." As he hung up and began the walk to the base, Liam's thoughts turned to Karina and her mother. He thought about the dinner invitation for the next evening, about the connection he now shared with this family he had never known existed this morning. The day had been a whirlwind of danger, quick decisions and intense emotions. But as Lance Corporal Liam Carter approached the gates of his base, he felt a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in a long time. Today, he had lived up to the core values of the Marine Corps in a way that went beyond any training exercise or combat scenario. With renewed determination, Liam squared his shoulders and stepped onto the base. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them, secure in the knowledge that he had made a real difference in the world today.